Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It is Neurodiversity Celebration Week this week. So for today's video, I thought it would be fun to reflect on 6 ways that finding out I'm autistic has changed my life for the better. So if that sounds interesting to you, I hope you will stick around for the rest of the video and I'll see you there. So figuring out my neurotype has honestly been the most life-changing and best thing to have ever happened to me. And that is for a variety of reasons, and I'm going to share 6 of those with you today. So number 1, my relationship to myself has shifted for the better ever since I began my self-discovery around autism. Even before I was fully confident in the fact that I was autistic and I was still in the discovery and questioning phase and the research phase, just having that framework in my mind helped me so much in terms of relating to myself with more self-acceptance, more self-compassion, and more self-understanding. Reason number 2 my life has changed for the better since figuring out I'm autistic is the fact that it's given me access to a feeling of belonging in this world that I never had before. Finding other people who could articulate things that I had been through and that I had previously felt so alone in, and despite bringing those feelings and experiences up with friends and family and sharing them, I never felt like other people could fully relate or understand me. And I just felt so out of place and so weird and alien. And being able to hear the voices of other autistic people and get to interact with them as a community is just such a wonderful feeling, and it's probably one of my favorite things since discovering I'm autistic, is just discovering that there is this community of other people who know what it's like to move through the world in the way that I do, even if our experiences vary and differ, as they naturally will, because no one autistic person is the same as another. It's just so comforting to feel like I finally have found my people. Way number 3 that my life has improved since discovering I'm autistic is reduced anxiety. And this is a little bit of an interesting one because it's not super cut and dry in the sense that my overall anxiety has lessened, but it's more that my secondary anxiety has reduced. So for example, I might still get really anxious, and I often do, about certain social situations or work situations. But now, instead of becoming even more anxious because I can't compute and I don't understand why I'm feeling anxious in the first place, I just feel like there's something wrong with me. I now have the framework of autism to give me context for my experience, and this really helps to manage the overwhelm when it crops up. And I also have access to different tools now that I didn't used to in order to manage that anxiety, such as sensory regulation tools, instead of just trying to mask that anxiety and get through the day. I have a way better idea of how to stabilize myself in those moments and operate in a way that is compassionate towards myself, instead of having my brain spiral into a pit of negative self-talk and cruelty because I'm so frustrated and overwhelmed about why I'm being so bothered or overwhelmed by a social situation, for example. So that's been really nice. Reason number 4 is accommodating myself. Again, this one is a little bit tricky because accommodating yourself doesn't always fly in a neurotypical world, and it can actually bring about more stress. So when you start to unmask and realize what it is you need and you start to implement those changes for yourself, it doesn't always go over super well with the people who may be witnessing or impacted by your accommodations, such as in a work setting, let's say. However, this has nonetheless been a really positive shift in my life since I discovered that I'm autistic, because I have a way better awareness of what my own needs are and more access to strategies through which to meet them. So this means I take a lot more rest, I say no more and more guilt-free, and I make sure to use sensory aids such as sunglasses or earplugs if I need to. Whereas before I would just sort of get by and then basically that stress would just stack and stack and stack in my system until I couldn't handle it anymore and it would have to come out in the form of a meltdown. So accommodating myself has been super important in terms of reducing how many meltdowns I have and in general just making my life a lot easier. Number 5 is that I have a whole new layer and depth to discovering myself and becoming myself. So this is a fun one for me because I am someone who really values figuring out who I am, what my purpose is, and deepening my relationship to myself. And before discovering that I was autistic, I think it was a little bit like swimming through a muddy river. I knew I was going forward, but I didn't feel like I had all of the picture. And figuring out that I'm autistic has been so liberating in that capacity, because it's like that puzzle piece that I could just never find, and I've been able to wipe the mud off my goggles and actually see where I'm going and have so much of a better understanding for who I am, as well as avenues through which to continue exploring myself, and the knowledge of which avenues I can just throw in the dumpster because they don't apply to me and they never will. Finally, number 6 is that figuring out my neurotype has unlocked a totally new passion for me. So learning about autism and neurodivergence has become a huge subject of interest, and I honestly just love learning about it. It is something that I spend a lot of time doing. I'm now creating a YouTube channel on it, and it's something that I just absolutely love to spend time researching and hearing other people talk about, and just deepening myself into that community and meeting other folks. And I can't say enough good things about that. It's been overwhelming at times because sometimes I need to take a break and just not consume any more autism or neurodivergent content because it's a lot of new information. So I've had to figure out how to pace myself, but it's one of those things where, when combined with the fact that it's a new community for me and it's helping me in all of these other ways, it's pretty amazing to have that as a new passion, and I really feel thankful for that. So that's it for my 6 ways that figuring out my autism has changed my life for the better. And I thought before I ended today's video that I would just provide a real and honest check-in about how I've been doing this week, simply in the spirit of acknowledging that the neurodivergent journey is really up and down, and despite all of the gifts that I have just gone over in this video, in the ways that figuring out I'm autistic has changed my life for the better and been just a beautiful gift in general, it's really important to acknowledge that the struggles persist and that is totally normal. So even though I can confidently say that my life has improved tenfold since finally having a framework through which to understand my experiences, that doesn't mean that I still don't struggle on a pretty regular basis. So, for example, this week I faced a lot of stress in a particular work situation, trying to decide whether to advocate for accommodations for myself or whether to just leave the work situation behind me and not expose myself and go through the vulnerability and the emotional labor of trying to advocate for myself. And I experienced several meltdowns throughout this process, including one this morning. And so I just felt like it was important to share that honest snapshot, especially because it is Neurodiversity Celebration Week, and part of celebrating our different brains is also highlighting the way that we experience challenges and giving space for that to also be okay. And maybe it doesn't feel completely right to say that we're going to be celebrating those challenges, but I think the more we talk about them, the more they become destigmatized, and we can integrate them into our experience of being alive as an autistic person or a neurodivergent person. And there's some beauty in that for sure. So I'm personally just really feeling honored to be able to create this video today, even despite the fact that I was feeling pretty darn rocky this morning. I'm discovering that expressing myself and using my creative outlets and giving voice to the honest realities that I face is hugely healing and really just helps me to feel like it's okay for me to exist. It's allowed for me to be who I am, even if that creates stress and challenges in terms of navigating the outside world and navigating relationships. Using my voice in this way is a part of just reclaiming the fact that I am worthy as I am. And I thank you guys for watching today's video. I'm curious if any of the ways my life has changed for the better resonate for you and for your experience. If so, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and I'd love to have you as a subscriber as well. I'll see you guys in the next video, and take good care of yourselves.